Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. The doctrine of vicegerency of mankind, of man, is something which is very common to every student of Islamic politics, every person who has read the basic political theory which is taught in our schools and our colleges and of course in various other institutions. It is one of the underlying and a fundamental concept of the Islamic political theory, in which it is said that man is the vicegerent of God on earth, and by this it is meant that he is his successor or vicegerent, and therefore he has been deputed with some powers on this earth when he was sent down on this earth, and each and every person in his personal capacity has this vicegerency ingrained in him. And just as God is the king of all the universe, and hence his sovereignty prevails in all the universe, being his deputy on earth, being his vicegerent on earth, it is man's responsibility that God's kingdom should also prevail on this earth. As a result, it is said that every Muslim has this responsibility to actually promulgate this institution of Khilafat on the face of the earth, because being the deputy of God, who is the ultimate Khalifa, who is the ultimate ruler of the universe, his rule has to be established on the face of the earth as well. The basic verse from which this meaning is derived occurs at the beginning of Surah Baqarah. It is the instance in which the whole episode of creation is being narrated. And when the Almighty says that He has this intention of creating someone on this earth, the words used are Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa. So the Almighty says that I am going to make a Khalifa on this earth. And here it is said that the word Khalifa, the way it has occurred here, people translate it to mean that God is going to make His deputy or His vicegerent or His successor on the face of this earth. And therefore, this is something that every person should know. Ustaaz Javed Ahmad Ghamidi has criticized this interpretation fundamentally, and his critique is actually linguistic in nature, and he says that linguistically it is not possible to derive this meaning from the word Khalifa, which occurs in this verse. So, if it had to mean God's successor or deputy or vicegerent, the word Khalifa should have either occurred by such that an alif lam or a definite article should have been appended to it. For example, it should have been Al Khalifa, or it should have occurred in the form of a governing noun and a governed noun, as we say. So the construction should have been Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifati, which would have meant that God is saying that I'm going to make my Khalifa or my deputy or my vicegerent on earth. In the absence of both these linguistic phenomena, we can say that the word Khalifa here cannot connote what is generally said. Now, it is also known that the word Khalifa in the Arabic language actually refers to either a person who is invested with power, and also it means that a person who is the successor or a deputy of a person who is invested with power. So these are the two meanings which are ascribed to the word Khalifa. So one is a person who is a deputy of a person of power and authority, and the other is a person of power and authority, a person who has power and authority and the freedom of will to exercise authority. So Ustaaz Javed Ahmad Ghamidi says that here the word Khalifa occurs in the meaning of a person who is invested with power, authority, and the freedom to exercise his will, and not with the meaning of a deputy of God. And he says that precisely because of this, the angels had actually this question in mind, that if God is going to create someone on this earth who is going to exercise authority, and because it's all the more probable that if he has his freedom of will to exercise authority, then it is much more probable that blood will be spilled and a lot of bloodshed would occur and carnage would occur on earth. And that is why they actually objected to or at least asked Almighty that why is He making such a person who is going to create bloodshed on earth. And this is because they understood that the word Khalifa here is actually referring to someone who has power and authority not as a deputy of someone, but who is invested with power and authority and the freedom to exercise that power and authority. So this is how Ustaaz Javed Ahmad Ghamidi interprets this verse, and as a result, this whole concept of Khilafah is an area of Islamic political theory in which he says that it is a totally baseless concept, and the doctrine of vicegerency of man has no basis in Islam and in the Quran. Now, a question can occur that are there verses in the Quran in which this word Khalifa has occurred in the meaning in which it is used in this verse of Surah Baqarah, that is a person who is invested, who is with power and authority and the freedom to exercise it. And the answer is in the affirmative. There are at least 2 or 3 verses in the Quran in which clearly it means a person who is invested with power and authority, or people who are invested with power and authority, and they do not refer here to people who are deputies or successors or vicegerents of some people or someone of power and authority. Thus, for example, in Surah Araf we have these words, وَاذْكُرُوا إِذْ جَعَلَكُمْ خُلَفَاءَ مِنْ بَعْدِ قَوْمِ نُوحٍ. Remember when we made you the khulafa after the qawmi, after the nation of Noah. And these words, this verse has been addressed to the people of Ad, who came centuries after the people of Noah. And of course, the areas in which they arose in prominence was also different from that of the nation of Noah. So we can clearly see that the word in the meaning of succession or deputy cannot be applied here, because of course thousands of centuries separated them. In between there were other nations who succeeded or who rose to power. So the people of Ad cannot be regarded as the successors or deputies of the people of Noah, because as I said that not only their places were different, but also centuries separated them. In between there were other nations as well. And then we have this famous verse in Surah Sad which says, Ya Dawood inna ja'alnaka khalifatan fil ard. O David, we have made you the earth's Khalifa. Now, if every person is God's Khalifa on this earth, the question arises that why is it that the Almighty is singling out David for this? I mean, everyone is a Khalifa, so why is it that the Almighty is just specifying that David, I have made you as the Khalifa, as someone who is the Khalifa of this earth? And then you see the succeeding words are Fahkum bainan nas bil haqq. Since I have made you the Khalifa of this earth, so you dispense with justice when you're deciding affairs. And this clearly shows that, of course, here also the meaning of deputy is not implied here. The meaning actually applied is a person who has power and authority. And of course, David had this power and authority, and he is being told that you should not misuse your power and authority. In fact, you should use this power and authority so that justice and fairness is exercised. And then the word istakhlafa, yours, is also made, it's also derived from this. And we can see istakhlafa here means to give someone khilafah, or to give someone authority and power. And this occurs in Surah Nur, and it is, to be precise, it's verse 55. The words are وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ لَيَسْتَخْلِفَنَّهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ كَمَا اسْتَخْلَفَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. So the Almighty has promised those among you who profess faith and who have done righteous deeds that He will make them the Khalifa of this world, of this land, the way He made those before them the Khalifa of the land. Of course, here it is also referring to the fact that political authority was given to them. So all these verses, you can see, they refer to the fact that it was this authority, this power and authority which was given, and it is not succession or deputization which is mentioned in either of these verses, as in the case that we have seen with the basic verse of Surah Baqarah also. So in a nutshell, the critique of Ustaaz Javed Ahmad Ghamidi is that we need to understand that inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa, I'm going to make a khalifa on this land, on this earth, cannot be translated as a person who is his deputy or successor or vicegerent, because if it had to be in this meaning, then the word khalifa should have been defined either through a governing noun or through a definite article. In the absence of this is linguistically not possible. And the meaning which actually occurs here is that the Almighty is saying that I am going to create someone who has authority and power in this land, and he is able to exercise his power and authority. And again, what needs to be understood is that at times a word has two meanings, and one of the meanings is actually a stripped form or a partial form of a main meaning. Thus, for example, the word that you are succeeding someone in power and authority, the word succession here is at times stripped from the word, and just power and authority remain. So precisely this has occurred in this word also. So it meant originally a person who succeeds someone of power and authority. And after more usage, just the power and authority aspect remain in that word, and the meaning of succession and deputization actually was stripped of that word. So this occurs in Arabic language a lot, in which a word has a meaning, a whole meaning, and then part of that meaning is stripped from that word. And a very clear example of this is the word waris, which occurs in the Arabic language. Now, a waris, of course, is a person who is the owner of a legacy. So when the Almighty, it is said regarding the Almighty, Inna nahnu nuhyi wa numitu wa nahnu al-warisun. So the Almighty says that it is we who give life and death, and it is we who are the waris. So the word waris here not only means an inheritor, not only means the person who inherits a legacy, it also means a person who is just the owner of a legacy. So here the word person who is not the owner of a legacy, but just the owner in itself is also implied. So a simple meaning would have been the person who is the owner of a legacy. But the word legacy has been stripped off here, and now the word owner only remains as its meaning. So the word waris will have two meanings, that someone who owns a legacy, a master of legacy, and the second meaning would be that the word legacy has been stripped off, and now it only means owner. And of course, when it says that the Almighty is the owner, it would only mean that he is the master. And of course, he is not the owner of a legacy, or he's not the person who's going to receive someone as inheritance. So the word waris, and similarly the word miras is also of a very similar import. When it is said, وَلِلَّهِ مِيرَاسُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, to God belongs the miras of the heavens and the earth. Of course, it does not mean the legacy. Here again, the meaning is that he owns the heavens and the earth. So part of that meaning has been stripped, and one part remains, very similar to the word Khalifa. So of course, this is slightly delicate and linguistic in nature, this whole discussion, but it is very important to note that this discussion is of fundamental importance, because out of this discussion has arisen this notion that because God is the Khalifa, because God is the ultimate sovereign of this universe, and because man is his deputy or vicegerent or successor on this earth, so therefore on behalf of God, he has to establish the kingdom of God on this earth. And because the kingdom of God prevails everywhere in this universe, so as his deputy on earth, he should now impose God's government or God's rule on this earth. And in this way, a new responsibility is added to the responsibility of every person. And Ustaaz Javed Ahmad Ghamidi says that this is a baseless derivation. It cannot be derived from this Quranic verse, neither can it be derived from any other Quranic verse. And establishing the kingdom of God by force on the face of the earth, or as a responsibility that every person should take up, is not at all implied, and it is not at all something which is given to us as our duty. Now, Ustaaz Javed Ahmad Ghamidi has explained this critique in the exegesis of Surah Baqarah, where he has talked about the word Khalifa in Surah Baqarah very earlier on. Those of you who would like to know more about it can look up this tafsir and see how he's explained it even further. But it is important that we note that this doctrine of vicegerency of man, which figures so prominently in the works of so many scholars of this century and the last century, like Abul Kalam Azad, Abul Ala Maududi, Sayyid Amin Hasan Islahi, and all of them actually have given weightage to this. And it is, of course, something which needs a revisitation and a reconsideration in the light of what Ustaaz Javed Ahmad Ghamidi has proffered. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات.